Welcome back to another video, guys. So as we know, with Starfield, they are Xbox exclusive, and they're also on PC as well in the Xbox ecosystem and available on Steam. But one of the reports that came out leading up to this game's release coming out next week was that there was going to be no NVIDIA DLSS. We know that Starfield has teamed up with AMD. They have the graphics cards and the marketing and all that type of stuff. And people were thinking this was something that Xbox potentially had put in as a marketing clause with Bethesda and stuff to give advantage to people who have AMD, who use the AMD GPUs to play this game by not having NVIDIA DLSS, the competitor to the FSR that AMD has, to get people to go out and potentially buy AMD stuff. And AMD claims there is nothing stopping Starfield from adding NVIDIA DLSS, but the developer Bethesda behind the game has not responded to the question. So it says here, AMD gaming chief Frank Azor is trying to thread a needle. He seemingly wants to say that AMD did not actually make Starfield, quite possibly the year's biggest PC game, exclusively support AMD's FSR upscaling technology at the expense of competitors like NVIDIA DLSS. And if you do sit back and you think about it, it would kind of make sense for them to want to do this with such a big game if they are trying to get people over to more AMD GPUs and all that type of stuff. I don't see how it would really make sense for Xbox to enter into something like this, because the game is available on Steam and they definitely want to appeal to as many people as possible. And they want people, which I would say a majority potentially are NVIDIA, have the DLSS. They want people who have that to be enticed to still want to play the game. But AMD's FSR is also in the Xbox technology. It's also on the SoC. We know that they've teamed up, they partnered with AMD. They have the RDNA 2 technology, and FSR being utilized on the Xbox Series X and S is going to be something that would be extremely important for this game if they want to get that performance and keep the frame rates where they want it. And FSR we really haven't seen utilized very much this generation with these consoles. And it's one of the most annoying things I would say for a lot of people is that there are a lot of tools out there with the RDNA 2 technology that just haven't been utilized. And that could solve so many issues going forward for games performance and the stuff that people are continuously bringing up, which is the mid-generation refreshes. If they are able to utilize these tools properly, maybe mid-gen refreshes aren't needed. We know PS5 is in the rumors for a PS5 Pro. Phil Spencer has recently come out again and essentially has hinted as of right now, they aren't thinking about a more powerful Xbox, but he didn't really say no to it. He was just saying at this point, they are focused on getting the most out of the Xbox Series X. I think that going forward, if the PS5 Pro does come out and it's significantly more powerful than the Series X, Xbox will probably have something up their sleeves to be able to go up against it, because they're definitely not going to want to be the console that is always falling behind in terms of performance, with being the most powerful console in the market right now. Now, Frank Azor continues on here. He clearly can't say that the contract includes or what's included in the contract. Instead, he repeatedly lands on this. If they want to do DLSS, they have AMD's full support. So this isn't something about AMD coming in here, making a deal with Xbox and getting them to not include DLSS into this game. He says there's nothing blocking Bethesda from adding it to the game. Azor, a co-founder of Alienware, said many open conversations with me over the years, and this is the only thing he's been cagey about all afternoon. This is what The Verge is saying. AMD specifically prepped for this exact question, he says, because the situation's a little delicate. He says, we want to be very careful not to put this answer onto our partners. He admits that in general, when AMD pays publishers to bundle their games with a new graphics card, AMD does expect them to prioritize the AMD feature. Money absolutely exchanged hands. So obviously there is something going on there with the partner. It says when we do bundles, we ask them, are you willing to prioritize FSR? Which makes complete sense. You want people to want to pick up the AMD graphics card over the NVIDIA graphics card. But also says this, that in general, it's a request rather than a demand. If they ask us for DLSS support, we always tell them yes. So when it comes to AMD, they're covering their ass here from what Frank is saying. Basically, that he is passing the buck here over to Bethesda and saying that we will give them the support if they want to implement DLSS. This is Bethesda's decision to only use FSR. So maybe internally it's Bethesda and Xbox coming to this decision, or maybe they just decided they didn't want to put in those resources, at least right now, to have the DLSS support. It says here that Bethesda's decision to use FSR is console leverage. And that makes a ton of sense. As I mentioned previously when we're talking about this, was that FSR is available on the Xbox consoles. They want that technology utilized in Starfield. They want that to be utilized in the games on the Series X and S. So when you're advertising it, you want that experience to be something that could potentially be similar on both the console and on the PC when utilizing the RDNA 2 technologies. And specifically says Starfield is also likely this year's biggest Xbox game, and FSR runs on AMD chips inside the Xbox Series X and S, as well as competing graphics. Meanwhile, each version of NVIDIA DLSS is exclusive to specific recent generations of NVIDIA GPU. But Starfield, contractually AMD exclusive, perhaps just temporarily exclusive, as Azar isn't going to say. If and then Bethesda wants to put DLSS into the game, they have our full support, he reiterates. So there you have it. There really isn't anything here that stops Bethesda from putting DLSS for this game on PC. However, I think when you sit back and you think about the fact that FSR is a big feature for the consoles, they're prioritizing that over DLSS and making sure that the experience from an AMD GPU to the console with this technology is very much the same. So that was just an interesting thing here with the back and forth here as to whether it was on purpose from a contractual perspective where AMD was trying to stop Starfield from utilizing NVIDIA DLSS. Now, quick little thing here, there is a brand new Xbox controller coming out. It is the Astral Purple, coming out on September 19th. I know people may be saying another Xbox controller. They seemingly are nonstop, continuously being released, continuously coming out. Xbox loves their controllers, and it is going to be the $64.99 price tag. And just another color, I guess, to add to your collection. So many of them out there. And this is this one. Then we recently also just got the beautiful Starfield exclusive one, and other cool accessories like the Xbox wraps, which actually they did show off a little bit more at Gamescom. And those wraps are far more high quality than some people were making them out to be, with the silicone and the actual texture of it and all the type of stuff. And I think they look pretty good. So more features, or more accessories, I should say, for Xbox coming. And finally, Dungeons of Hinterberg, a game that was showed off at the Xbox showcase this year. I thought looked really, really good. It was actually one of the surprises. And we got some more information here because of Gamescom. Got some more screenshots. There was a new trailer that actually did just get put out too, which the game looks phenomenal. Looks just as good as it did at the Xbox showcase. But we learned some interesting stuff here. This is an action RPG with puzzles. It's also a social sim adventure, where one of the interesting things that I saw from going through this article is that you'll be mixing your NPC interactions as well as your battling. It's all of this will play into the game. It says here, if this mix of battling and socializing brings titles like the Persona series to mind, know that there is less pressure to maximize every moment in Dungeons of Hinterberg. Indeed, your players can take a full day break from adventuring if they choose to spend more time with friends. Louisa is on vacation after all, and Louisa is the main character of the game. And they also say here that hanging out with NPCs isn't just a break in the action. It's crucial to your success. Your character will learn new, useful skills by up-leveling their social link. So essentially, this is a game where you go on adventures every day. You take on enemies, you take on dungeons, you go through puzzles, and you're going to be upgrading your character that way with some RPG mechanics. And then on top of that, if you don't want to go out and battle, you can just hang out with NPCs, socialize with them, and then that as well will improve your character, which I actually think is a pretty cool feature itself, because there are so many games where you're interacting with NPCs and it really doesn't do anything. It's not even for quests. It's somewhat for story and maybe just some interesting lines that they do say. I like the fact here that actually interacting will give you some progression in the game. If you're just sitting back, maybe you don't want to go into a full-fledged dungeon, you don't want to take the time at that point in your night when you're gaming to go out and fight all these enemies, you can still actually upgrade your character by just hanging out with the NPCs and kind of learning more about the world and the lore and all of that type of stuff. So that's pretty cool. And the action itself in the video, if you go watch the gameplay trailer that we did get, game looks great. I can't wait for this one to come out, and we now know that it is slated for a spring 2024 release. And of course, this is a day one Xbox Game Pass game. But I will leave the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. If you are new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Bye.